Hi, I'm Mark Doty. I'm here to talk to you about the Dave Smith Instruments Pro 2 synthesizer. I know you're accustomed to me doing demonstrations of vintage analog synthesizers, and the Pro 2 actually is a hybrid synthesizer with digital oscillators and an analog signal path after that. So this is a bit of a departure for me. Also, I don't usually demonstrate synthesizers of the sort of vast possibility that the Pro 2 possesses. So there are going to be a lot of videos, and I'm sorry for that. I'm not sorry for that. I'm just sorry for the kind of talking that you'll see in the videos like I'm doing right now, where I sort of blather endlessly about a point that could probably be made in a sentence. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to be demoing the Dave Smith Instruments Pro 2. I gotta say, it is one of the most amazing synthesizers I've played. And for the first time in my life, digital oscillators don't matter to me. And why? Because this synthesizer allows you to take those digital oscillators and do analog sounding things, like truly analog sounding, not just this is what an analog synthesizer kind of does, but like literally has the tone quality that sounds more like analog than I've often heard. So this is an exciting moment for me, and hopefully an exciting moment for you, because here I am demoing a synthesizer with digital oscillators. But I thought the smartest thing to do for this series was to start it out with a demonstration of why the digital oscillators don't matter to me, why I love this synthesizer from an analog standpoint as well. And I thought of no better way to do this than to make a video where I show you how analog the Pro 2 can actually sound. So that's what's coming up right now. Thank you for watching the videos. I hope you enjoy this rather lengthy series of videos due to the excessive and fascinating functionality of the Pro 2. So I guess here we go. Look at you, all knobby. Perfect. Analog sound, even though you're not. You know I love you. You want to stay here with me, don't you? You do. I can tell. You feel about me like... Hey. It's not what it looks like. Oh, okay. Yeah, that wasn't the right video. Here's the right one. So here is how you can generate analog sounding sounds with a synthesizer with excellent digital oscillators. As you know, this is the Dave Smith Pro 2. And okay, so the Dave Smith Pro 2 has analog filters, which is awesome, but it has digital oscillators. And the problem with digital oscillators is that they're perfect. They create really pure waveforms and really stable sound, like this. Unchanging. Now that's cool sounding, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that that's not how analog synthesizers sound, because analog synthesizers are imperfect. They're imperfect in regard to their wave shape and their tuning. Those things vary over time in an analog oscillator, and that's what gives the analog oscillator its characteristic sound. Now, the oscillators in this synthesizer are really great. But if you're like me, and this is one of the reasons I love this synth, you kind of crave that analog sound. So I'm going to show you how to get an analog sound with the Dave Smith Instruments Pro 2. First, let's mess up this perfect waveform. There it is. Look at that sawtooth, all perfect. What they've done is they've given us the ability to change that perfect sawtooth. I'm going to show you how to do it with shape mod. As you can see, we can change the shape of the waveform. Now, mostly that's a timbral benefit because you can get different timbres. That in itself isn't going to give us the analog sound we want. What we want is the ability to modify that waveform over time. Now we could do this. And that makes a super cool sort of pulse width modulation type sound. That again, although that does exist in analog synthesizers, is not what we're looking for here. Let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to make that sawtooth slightly imperfect, and then I'm going to go up to LFO1, choose a triangle. We're going to put the frequency very low. Oh, whoops. We're going to put the frequency very low, like maybe just 2. And the amount, well, first of all, let's assign where it's going. It's going to oscillator 1 shape modulation. If we go back here, let's give it a big amount so you can hear what it's doing. There's kind of a phasing sound. That is the sound of that shape being changed like I showed you. We don't want a phasing sound. We just want an imperfect waveform. So we're going to take that amount and back it way, way, way off. If you're listening, you can hear that it's no longer as pure and static a waveform as it used to be. If we really wanted to mess it up, we could assign a number of modulations to it to cause it to be even more unstable and not just changing over time, but actually unstable. But we'll cover that in a while. Okay, that's one of the things we can do with this oscillator to help it be less perfect. Another thing we can do is go to the oscillator mods section and adjust the oscillator slop. Now, if we turn this all the way up, what we're basically doing is making this a very pitch unstable oscillator. I don't know if you can hear, it is going out of tune when it's that high. We don't need it to be that high, but we could do with a little bit of pitch driftiness, which is what the slop provides for us. Again, it takes away some of that perfection that exists in the frequency. So now we have a messy waveform and a messy frequency. Let's add another oscillator. Now what we can do with this oscillator is, again, we can choose a sawtooth, change the shape a little bit more. Again, we can go up to LFO2, assign it a frequency of maybe 1 and an amount of a little bit higher. Well, no, let's stick low. We'll choose the destination being oscillator 2's shape mod. And then we'll go to oscillator 2 and turn up the volume so we can hear what we're doing. You can hear those waveforms changing. We can also go to oscillator 2's slop and turn that up a little bit. Wow, that's quite a bit. Maybe we can turn it off, back that off a little bit. So you can hear the phasing that is happening because of the difference in pitch and the difference in wave shape. Now, on top of that, let's also detune oscillator 2. And because we have oscillator slop going on, that detuning is going to change over time. Okay, so the fine people at Dave Smith have also given us the opportunity to add girth. This girth function adds a little bit of low end to the oscillator so it can sound like some of the oscillators of the past that had sort of an emphasis in the low end. So you can hear it getting kind of bassier in a certain region. So there we have generated an oscillator, a couple of oscillators that sound not static, not perfect. They're kind of messy. And that's what we're looking for when we're trying to generate an analog sound. Next, let's go into the filters. Now, the filters, again, like I said, are analog. So that's fantastic and gives us a lot of opportunity. Let's listen to filter 1, which is a 24 decibel per octave low-pass filter. That is a nice sounding filter, and because it's analog already, it's helping us be analog. But let's add a little bit more mess to it. Okay, so this analog filter, one of the great things that you have on this instrument is that you're able to see exactly how the filter is affecting your sound. And that's a great analog sound, but we could make it a little bit more analogish by doing a trick that I often do on the Mini Moog. Let's go into LFO3. Let's give it a very high frequency, and then let us give the filter 1's cutoff as the destination. To give you an idea of what this is really doing, I'm going to turn the amount all the way up. Okay, obviously that's not what we're looking for, even as cool as that is. What we're looking for is something much more subtle. We're just providing a little bit of distortion. We need dirt if we're going to get an analog sound, and that's a way to add some dirt. If you want to add more dirt, we also have a knob over here called distortion. That's a little bit more than we need, but isn't distortion cool? We can also add distortion to this sound, but we need to be very delicate with it so that it's not sounding like it's distortion. You can hear it kind of kick in right there. So we're just going to give a little bit of distortion. And how about adding some filter envelope? Sometimes you can hear that distortion in there, and you can hear a little bit of the modulation of the filter cutoff. But what we've done here is created a sound that is messy and dirty and unstable. And that is still probably too much distortion. And that is how you can generate a really analog sound. Now, a lot of times people will listen to digital synthesizers and software and say, hey, you know, that sounds like an analog sound because I'm used to what vintage synthesizers do. But for me, rarely do you say, hey, that sounds like an analog sound, not because of what it does, but because of how it sounds when it's doing what it does. And with the Pro 2, they've given us the tools to imitate that sound more than just the functionality. And we're not even done yet because look at this. We have a whole other filter here. A lot of vintage synthesizers had a state variable filter like this one. This is 12 decibels per octave. It's patterned after the filter in the Oberheim SEM. Again, we can watch what we're doing right here on the screen. We can add envelope amount to that. And down here, we have the opportunity for also a high pass filter. And a notch filter, which we'll talk about more when I cover the filters. But for now, let's turn on the band pass, which is my personal favorite. So you can get these sounds when the bandpass filter button is on. The low pass, high pass, and notch are not functional. You can get more different types of vintage sounds because we have a multitude of filters to choose from at the same time. And if we wanted to, we could use them simultaneously. That's in a serial function, which is just like, for example, the Korg MS-20 has filters working in a serial fashion. Hear that low end? I mean, that's fantastic. Very analog. Or we could do parallel, where both filters get to affect the sound in their own way. But you can hear, well, I don't know what you were hearing, but what I'm hearing is a pretty analog sound for a synthesizer with digital oscillators. But these filters sound great. These oscillators sound great as digital oscillators, but we can also mess them up and make them sound decently like analog oscillators. And that's one of the reasons that this synthesizer appeals to me, a vintage analog guy who is obsessed with vintage analog. Even though it has this digital aspect and digital functionality, it really suits my needs as a vintage analog synthesizer player. And that's one of the reasons I am obsessed with this keyboard.